Welcome to week 9. Our topic this week is legislators or legislatures and legislative elections. The authors begin this chapter with a proposal that New Zealand's legislative electoral system should be the envy of the world and something to be emulated. What's so special about New Zealand's approach to legislative elections? Why do the authors think it's so much better than, for example, American elections? So what are legislatures and what do they do? The authors, I think, somewhat misleadingly state that politics is about making laws to govern people. I think politics is about considerably more than that, but in any event, legislatures are deliberative bodies composed of decision makers who represent the population. And what makes those bodies of people a legislature is their authority to make laws. Uh, I like that the authors go back to the origins of the institution. Legislatures were originally gatherings of important and powerful landholders, and their original function was to advise and support an unelected king. But they could often wield great influence even back in the medieval period. For example, Wessex, which was southern England in the early medieval period, it was the Witan, or the meeting of wise men, who decided that Alfred the Great would become king when his brother Ethelred died, despite the fact that Ethelred had two living sons. So they could, basically be kingmakers at times, and that reflects, that original point. Back in those early days, legislatures were hardly representative, but they were influential and potentially, militarily powerful, and therefore they could be politically powerful. It was a parliament composed entirely of nobles that forced King John of England to sign the Magna Carta in 1215 AD, a document which asserted the rights of the nobility but was notably silent on the rights of commoners. We can certainly discuss the potentially undemocratic nature of legislatures over the course of the week. For now, we should recognize that legislatures are an important aspect of indirect democracy, and most countries are simply too large to be governed directly. There are differences in how legislatures are organized. Some are unicameral, meaning they only have one body. Usually those are relatively modest-sized states. While many legislatures, especially in modern, large population states, are bicameral, which is a concept with which most Americans should be familiar. Again, we can discuss the advantages and disadvantages of a unicameral versus a bicameral legislature in the forum. There are a lot of different approaches to electing a legislature. Perhaps the most easy to understand is a single-member plurality district. That's how the United States House of Representatives and most of the state legislatures do it. Many parliamentary systems, in contrast, use some variety of multi-member or proportional representation. There are a number of important consequences for any electoral system, and most are capable of producing perverse results. So, some are more equitable than others. And that's an important and interesting to me topic that we can talk about this week. This week, our country to profile is Nigeria, which is a federal republic on the west coast of Africa. It's one of the largest countries of Africa. It's one of the African superpowers, along with South Africa in the south and then Egypt to the north. Nigeria's current population of roughly 200 million people make it the 7th largest in the world. Because of its oil wealth, its GDP ranks around 23rd in the world, but its HDI score of 0.523 suggests the quality of life in Nigeria is pretty low. Again, probably owing to the fact that the oil wealth is not being equitably distributed. There are over 250 separate ethnic groups that are part of the Nigerian population, with the three largest being the Hausa and Fulani, who are oftentimes grouped together. They represent about 29% of the population. The Yoruba, who represent about 21%, and the Igbo ethnic group, which represent about 18%. A bitter civil war which raged from 1967 to 1970, when the Igbo people attempted to declare the separate Republic of Biafra, caused casualties that are estimated between 1 to 3 million dead. Today, the country divides evenly, if not neatly, between Christians, who represent about 47% of the population, and Muslims, who represent about 51% and are located mainly in northern Nigeria. The Hausa and Fulani ethnic groups are predominantly Sunni Muslims, while the Igbo and a lot of other groups are predominantly Protestants and primarily Anglican in orientation. About 1/4 of Nigerians are Catholic, and they have a fundamentalist Islamic group called Boko Haram, operating in the northern part of the country, which has caused a great deal of political instability in an already unstable country. When you think about the ethnic divisions and the sectional divisions that dog that country, it's a real challenge to try and find a way of governing it. This week, in addition to the weekly forum and quiz on Chapter 9, we have our third country profile due. We're looking to profile a country from Africa. Let's try and make sure we select a country large enough to draw a good profile. Also, remember the second unit exam is looming 2 weeks away, so we better start preparing. All right, let's have a productive week.